Today I had some new gouache come in, and we've been using gouache for our relearning of portrait painting. So here I have what's called the Zorn palette. It is black and white, vermilion. I think it was originally cadmium red, or a light cadmium red, and then or vermilion, and then yellow ochre. And from this, I believe a lot of things are able to be mixed, except for purples. The black takes the place of a blue within it, so it's used as a cool value. Mixing the black with the yellow ochre, you can get a dulled down green. So there's different things with it, and it's just a way that people use for portrait painting. So I cleaned off my gouache palette completely. I soaked it in the bathtub and then kind of rinsed and scrubbed it a little bit. This is so I can kind of start from scratch on it. I'm not sure if I'm going to clean the palette every time I use it, because I do have a little bit of difficulty reconstituting gouache, but we'll see how it goes, because it does dry quite what's the word, like chalky and brittle. So I'm just gonna put these on there real quick. I have a photo of a Boldini painting, and I figure one of the best ways to relearn this is to copy the masters. Now, it's not going to be perfect color wise, probably won't come out good at all, but it's literally just there for me to relearn. Practice, practice, practice. So without further said, I think everything can be seen on this screen. I might move this in a little bit and move this right there so you guys can see that. And I'll just paint right in this region. I'm using the back of a watercolor sheet that I already painted on. I think it's Stonehenge Aqua. So I'm just going to put in a kind of a background. We'll see what we can do color-wise, what takes place as we mix these together. So that's going to be fun, just exploring these mixtures and what colors we can get and what values. So this is just mixing the ochre with the vermilion, and then just lightening it down with that. I'm assuming if I mix this in, I could maybe get, okay, more neutral. Okay, so it's just an interesting mud at the moment. I'm going to put that in as kind of a background wash. I will have to go back and forth at times drying off, so I will give you a heads up for that. And we'll put that back wall. So it's a red floor. So let's mix that with the black, see what happens. Mix white in, just curious. It looks like the door and the wall are kind of gray, so I'm just gonna mix black and white. Now, learning the concentration of pigments and what needs to be mixed and what quantities and when things should be dry, that's going to be part of the learning process for this. Okay. So that being put in, I'm going to dry it since it's all wet right now, and then we'll start shaping in the figure. So if you have earplugs on, earbuds, just watch out. Now I'm going to take a small rigger, and what I'm going to first do, I don't really sketch things in, but it'll help me use a rigger with just a light tone to get an idea of where everything is. I'm going to kind of use the concept of the 7.5 head method that we talked in previous videos. So I'm going to loosely go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. The background isn't going to match up because of how low I put it. I'll probably raise it up and whatnot. But, oh, the half was supposed to go half right up here. So we'll move the background around. This is just to get things in mind. So we have the head. So chin and the top of the head. The hair is going to come around. Shoulders, I believe, are halfway through this one, if I remember correctly, but they're tilted, so I'm looking at the angle, and I'm going to put it at about that, and I'll play around with it. The outside of the hair matches up with this elbow. This hair does not. It goes down on an angle. Then from there, I have my notes on the previous ones right here. It's been a few days since I looked at any figure sketching. So our shoulder halfway, the nipple line would be here. So shoulder, nipple area, arms come in, elbow, waist, give or take. Sorry, elbow, belly button, wrist, then the hand comes about down halfway. Okay, so that's just to get that idea there. The feet are going to be here, but the dress is flowing, so it's just going to extend down. Now, tonality-wise, I'm not sure what is necessary to go first, so we're going to kind of play back and forth. So right now I'm just going to take a white, mix a little bit of the yellow ochre, and see what I can get flesh-wise. I do have other gouache coming in for flesh and all that, but I think it's very important for me to learn about this Zorn palette. Oh, she is like way white. I'm just gonna have to get a lot of white opacity. So shoulder, head, face. Now I'm just going to start blocking in tones. So this is her upper chest. And here I'm going to wind up learning about layering gouache in order to get the opacity that's needed. Here is belly button. Here is the arm that comes down. And the hand that splays out. This other arm, if I look at it, it comes up over here, comes out from the shoulder. It's supposed to be somewhere in this region. Then we have the white of her face, tilted on an angle, neck, and I have that. So I'm just pushing it around with a number 1 rigger. This is silver black velvet brand. So that's what I think is like an affordable range and what other artists have recommended. I think some people do say not to mix your gouache brush with watercolor brush. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if it could really do any damage to these brushes, but we'll see. So this hand comes out pretty far. So I'm just looking at the top of the head, looking at the top of the head. And that. So we're just putting in the shapes. Now let's grab, the dress is kind of like a blackish green. So we can achieve a blackish green from mixing raw sienna and black. Now, I'm thinking I'm going to switch over from this. It's a little too tedious, so I got a number 4 script. So I can put more pigment down. Okay. So this is black and the yellow ochre. So it seems to be going down just pure black, but we'll play around with it and experiment as well. So this figure comes over this arm. Shape, elbow, belly button, so the waist kind of comes in there. Let's see if I can get it to push greener. I might have to lighten it up. So we're just putting in the mass of here. The foot, I think we had said, would be about here. My initial sketch is pretty light comparatively, so it's hard for me to see it. The feet would be about here. The dress extends forth and goes into this range. Now he has very painterly brush strokes in this. This is, like I said, a Boldini painting, and they referred to him as the master of swish, you know, having that movement and whatnot. A very famous portrait painter. Time period, I'm not too sure. I think might be late 1800s, early 1900s. I don't have too much information on him. I know that there's definitely plenty of information out there about him. I just don't have any knowledge off the top of my head. Now this is like a brownish part. I guess it's the underside of the fabric. So I'm gonna see how it looks if we mix a cad red into this, because we'd have the green. So when I say cad red, I meant vermilion. Because when we have the greenish black, we could potentially mix that in there to make a brown. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so this is close enough for our efforts. By the way, if you're watching this video, down below I have a link to a Patreon account. So if you'd like to support me, I have 2 very simple Patreon tiers, and those 2 tiers, the first one is like $2 or $3, the second one is $5. These help buy art supplies and paints and papers and experimental stuff, and, you know, continue keeping this channel going. Also, the more expensive one, the $5 one, has some exclusive content for viewers. Okay, so this is going to be her hair, just black and whatnot. So I'm just going to start massing it in. Now, of course, if you can't or don't want to be a supporter, that's totally fine. I will not have any, there will be no hard feelings. But I would like you guys to like and subscribe and ask questions in the comment section down below. Questions, comments, any ideas, anything that you think I need to touch upon, any advice you have. Because like I said, this is a relearning taking place. So this is just putting in the darks for the hair, and that's going to accentuate the head, and we'll start shaping it up. Now, tonally, the background is darker, so I'm going to put that in alongside, and the reason I'm doing that is twofold. To help shape this shoulder by looking at the background, it's also going to help her body pop forward, so it'll kind of give a 3D aspect to it. Now, the white gouache around it I think is still wet, and so is the black, so we are going to get some blending, but I'm more concerned with just getting the overall shape in place and starting to get tonal values correct. One thing that I have quite a lot of difficulty with is facial features in painting. So one of the whole point of this is to really learn how to start putting in facial features very simply. Okay, so this is back here, so I'm just going to feed this around. So that's a thing you can keep track of with art, is if you need to lighten an area up, rather than trying to lighten up that spot, you can try darkening the area around it, and vice versa. If you need to darken a spot, you could try lightening the area around it. This arm goes out more. And it's kind of a, from what I remember, and like I said, last time I did really studying any figure painting or portraits was like 10 years ago in college. And it was a lot of push back and forth and paint next to each other, the values, to create the shapes and to push them. And when I had done those in college, we had used oil paint, but I think I want gouache for this. Well, I'm kind of committed to gouache after purchase. Let me darken up that red floor. Comes in about here. It is interesting the angle that he painted at, the perspective he painted from. That perspective actually will throw away the 7.5 head principle rule that I used to set up because of the angle that we're looking at. But it was just a generic guideline for me to put things in place. If you're working from a model or something like that, you would hold your pencil up and use it to look at different sizes and angles and how they correct, or your brush. But I'm just working off right here. Okay, now since I have a lot of wetness going on, I'm just going to do a dry off and go on to the next layer. my personal goal is to minimize the back and forth that takes place in the modeling and whatnot. But you know, we're still learning the medium. We're still learning the shapes. So this is more white, kind of a peachish white from what we had on the. So we're going to accentuate her edges. And we're going to get some tonal value on her. The last gouache painting study I did, figure painting of a female, I showed it to my mom, and my mom was immediately like, "Oh, take away her beard, for God's sake." I'm like, "Mom, I'm learning the shadows and how to put them in." She was giving me a hard time. The hands just splay. We're gonna have to bring in and pinch her arms in with the black and the red of the dress. I kind of think I'll need to do almost 2 piles of white paint, of the titanium white, mainly because it seems that or for me, it's getting mixed very easily, and I'm not getting that pure white that I want for her for the highlights. So 1 pile for maybe mixing, and 1 pile for just pure white. Or I could do a better job cleaning off the brush. This is a ripple in here. Let's get that black again. Here's a gray because I had the white on it. Get some of these shapes and textures. A light gray right in here where you can kind of see through the fabric to her arm. Start getting movement. I'm going to mix the raw sienna in this to see if we can get towards that green. Yeah. I'll have to look and see what palettes, colors Boldini used. I'm always curious about that. Like I said, once again, this is kind of me exploring the Zorn palette, and this is my first time using that. That is to minimize what we're working with so we don't get hung up on too much on different mixtures. Okay, so just getting that a little bit of just swishy feel. Vermilion into that mixture to get here. And we haven't looked at the Bridgman's Guide book in a while, but whenever we get back to looking at that, eventually there's a chapter on different folds and clothing and fabrics, which will be, I think, pretty cool. We do need to mix a gray. And this gray is, once again, to put back here and to shape her body with the wall. She has a curve, so that's the deltoid coming in. Whenever we looked at the 7.5 head figure, we did find a place for that bottom curve of the deltoid to fit in, which was interesting. Where was that? Bottom curve of the deltoid lined up with the nipple. So it's a little bit off here because of that perspective. So I'm just putting in that gray background, using it to shape her. Do it lighter on this side. We're still going to use it to shape. Comes in like that. I'm more concerned about the shape of her shoulders and her physical form that we can see. And then as opposed to the form of her dress and whatnot. The form of her dress will be an important part whenever we look at folds and how clothing hangs on the body. But for the most part, I think we can kind of wing that. Come back in over with the hand. Probably have to use the #1 rigger on that. Okay, so we're getting more shape like we want. And I can mix a dark red, vermilion, for this background. I'm getting messages on the phone and I apologize for that. It's interesting if you look very closely at this photo of this painting. He does have some movement for the floor, for the cross hatching, and that gives you a little bit of perspective with it. He also gives you a little outline of a door back here. But it's interesting how he minimizes the importance of it and just gives the gestural strokes, and that gives you the idea of the door. Okay, I want more dark for the hair since it lightened up. So I'm going to do dark, and then I'm going to pass back over with like kind of a lighter gray to give texture in the hair. The hair doesn't extend this far down, it extends to about here. However, I'm trying to get that shape of her face to really take place. So I'm once again, less worried about the exact contour and the outline of the hair. I'm more worried about getting her the body shape that we can see correct. Before we do a dry off, let's mix a black raw sienna yellow ochre. As you know, my watercolor I use raw sienna, and that's because it's more opaque, translucent with the watercolor. That's why I used it there. So you can see how we kind of get a yellowish green. And we're pushing in close to shape that. Let's get some pure black in some of these spots. Just some directional marks. One thing I'm gonna have to start doing is asking my female friends if they have any like wedding photos or photos from like ball gown things or anything like that. This lines up right here, so our chest is on this side, the front right here, so I could have reference material to paint from. And then I need to find and ask my guy friends anything like what, like same thing with where they have suits and whatnot. Trying to make this more movement in this area to get it to pop forward more, because I used a lot of vermilion for that floor. The dress swooshes. Okay, so let's do a dry off and then we'll switch to the rigger and see if we can start getting more tones within the body. Okay, good enough. Let's get white. I want to get like I was saying, maybe do 2 spots of white on the palette. One that will get more pure. All right, I'm gonna have this guy in this hand to try to clean off anything. All right, so the super highlights are the upper chest below the collarbone. There is highlights on the neck and this elbow, shoulder. Comes up, comes around. This is closer right here, so I feel like this should be whiter in value. And that seems to be the whitest I'm going to get with this. So I'm going to go through and put my white in, and then I'm going to change the tone a little bit. And eventually I'll come up with a, who's calling me? Okay, I'll call him back. That was my buddy Bill. Okay, wetting it down a little bit because I'm kind of using it too pure. It's gone a little too thick. Okay, this comes along here. And the hand. I messaged Bill earlier today to see if he actually went crabbing this morning, because we had some thunderstorms come through. So this is the swoop of the hand. I'm going to use 2 brushes just for me to push back and forth. This is a gray. I don't want too much water. And up on the curve right here. So we're trying to get better shape on that arm coming back and out. It looks a little sickly. Oh, I'm so sorry guys that my phone is like going crazy. I use my phone to film and all that. Okay, bring that tone throughout. Okay, so our arms are starting to form better. It is thicker as we go up the arm, and it's closer, so the arm recedes back. That hand might be going in a little too big. I am... Hold on one second, guys. I'm going to change it. Now it was on vibrate, so it shouldn't do that anymore. So sorry. Okay, so we're just shaping. All right. Now, let's look at her face. And one of the things I need to look at is how big these paintings are in real life, because I am working on a small scale. This is, what, 3/4 of an inch about, the head right here, from chin to the top corner. So we're going to whiten up her face. A little bit of grays, not really gray, but like a highlight in her hair. The edges were wet and wet, so we got diffusion. I can tell you right now, I think this palette is like people say. They say it's good for learning on, because the small subtlety that you'd have to mix to get that like that alone is just a little too strong, I think. So that's crazy. Like the neck underneath the chin, and bringing out the white in the chin. The eyebrows. And how that goes into the face, goes into the eyes. We do have some different reds coming in to try for different flesh tones, and for lips. I'm extending the hair down just so I can get that shape that I've been talking about. Let's mix a little raw sienna in here. For some accentuations in the body and the shadows. So no, Mom, if you're watching this, that's not a beard. This is the outside curve. Inside curve where the armpit would then lead towards the breast. Collarbone. The hand gets ochre. Why the hand changes color value so much, I'm not sure. Let's run along each side of the arm to get a curve. The fabric over on top. The hand. It swoops up and the fingers come down. I don't want to make it too claw-like. That's something, so hands are another thing I'll have to practice. There is a jewelry band on her upper arm, upper part of the forearm, right about here. So I'll just put that in. There's jewelry on her finger. So the hands don't look that great. The face doesn't look like that great. But the only thing I can keep doing is just practicing and pushing it back and forth and seeing. This is mixing the color in. Black. I think I have too much on the brush. Nope. Let me lift that a little bit. Lift that a little bit. All right, let's see. So I am going to wrap it up in a few. I'm going to just get some a little bit vibrant colors just to stroke onto this, just to experiment with the dry brushing. I got paint on my screen. Is that ochre mixture. Now, let's see if we do it with the face one more time and then we'll call it. And so the structures are starting to get there. So shape, tonality, it's the hand detail, the face detail, all those little details that are starting to, that are still eluding me. Poofiness of the dress here. The shape of the lips. It's just so weird how natural they were able to make it look. The masters. And that is what's giving me the trouble. What we might do next time is the paper is in a landscape orientation. Next time I'll do it in portrait orientation, and that'll give us more room to work with. And we'll have a, like this right here, top to bottom is about 9-10 inches, let's say, because this is 11, so let's say 10, 9, 10. But it would be 14, so we have a little bit more. We're gonna have the shadow from the hair. Maybe that'll help. Just still too stark. And I apologize if it seems like I'm complaining. It's just me, you know, saying out loud what the issues are with it, and what I need to practice and what we need to watch out for in future painting endeavors. That's too dark. It's that shadow that she winds up casting. All right, so in the interest of time and this being a video that I'm kind of filming for you all, I'm going to leave it at this. Once again, questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, please, you know, post down below and we'll discuss them. We will definitely be back and work on these again and again and practice, practice, practice. So I hope you all are trying these guys at home, and I'd love to see your results or see what type of figure paintings y'all been doing, if you do any. Then we'll see, you know, where we can progress with this, what we can learn and practice. So on that note, I hope you all have a great day. I will see you all soon. I think I'll maybe be back on later on tonight with some more painting. We'll probably do a landscape. Okay? Well, you all have a great day.